And then it's tariff. Because tariffs are going to make us rich as hell. It's going to bring our country's businesses back.
To see how these tariffs will impact Japan and Americans buying cars.
Short term, we have to brace for the impact. We work hard to find a way to overcome these incremental costs.
Those incremental costs at the moment are huge.
Detroit, once the proud symbol of America's auto industry, now faces a harsh reality. In 2025 alone, the 4 largest Asian car manufacturers simultaneously pulled out of the US market, leading to the loss of over 38,000 American jobs. Production lines ground to a halt, and numerous plants across the Midwest shuttered their doors. Families who depended on steady factory paychecks now grapple with mounting debt and an uncertain future. Meanwhile, American consumers are feeling the squeeze as new car prices skyrocket by $5,000 to $10,000, forcing millions to turn to the used car market. Even decade-old vehicles are being sold at soaring prices. Across the border, Canada is reaping the rewards. The very companies exiting the US are investing heavily in Canadian cities, building new plants, and shifting the balance of power in North America's auto sector. But why? Why have corporations, which once viewed the United States as the most lucrative market in the world, suddenly turned away? Before we dive deeper, don't forget to hit that like button. At the heart of this mass exodus stands one name above all: Toyota. Once the undisputed king of American highways, Toyota dominated the US market for decades as the best-selling foreign brand, known for its reliability and durability. Yet by 2025, this giant had become the quintessential victim of President Trump's 25% tariff wall. The numbers tell a grim story. Financial losses could reach as high as $19 billion in just 1 year, wiping out years of growth in an instant. Toyota's ambitious push into electric vehicles, once the cornerstone of its North American strategy, has been forced to retreat. The supply chain that once flowed seamlessly across continents is now strangled by tariffs, rising costs, and constant delays. The immediate result? A shrinking US market share. Faced with soaring prices, customers are turning away, opting instead for cheaper used cars. The loyalty that once defined Toyota's brand is rapidly eroding, pushing the company toward an unwilling withdrawal. In this shifting landscape, Canada and Europe, with their friendlier policies and more stable supply chains, have emerged as safe havens, standing in stark contrast to the once untouchable US market. The giant that once ruled American roads now finds itself cornered. Still with me? Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what's next. If Toyota's fall from grace illustrates the scale of this upheaval, Nissan's story exposes the financial devastation wrought by tariffs. For years, North America was Nissan's gold mine, a market promising steady, long-term growth. But by 2025, that bright outlook had morphed into a nightmare as Nissan reported record losses. The figures were staggering. $5.3 billion wiped out in a single year, the largest loss in the automaker's history. This wasn't a temporary setback, but a full-scale collapse that threatened Nissan's very presence in North America. The withdrawal had already begun. Iconic vehicle lines that once defined the brand in Canada, like the Pathfinder, Murano, and Frontier, were completely discontinued, cutting off models long associated with Nissan's regional identity. Even more alarming was the fate of its production base in Mexico, which exported over 320,000 vehicles annually to the US. That facility now faced downsizing or closure, casting doubt over decades of investment and Nissan's deep roots in Detroit's industrial ecosystem. Nissan had become the clearest example of a forced retreat. Not a strategic exit, but one born from harsh realities that made staying impossible. Hyundai's story illustrates how Washington's policies didn't just hit economics. They triggered complex immigration issues as well. Unlike many competitors, Hyundai faced a double blow. On one hand, tariffs dealt a financial shock. In Q2 2025, the company reported a $606 million loss, with operating profits falling 16%. For a brand once hailed as a rising star in the US market, the plunge was both sudden and severe. Yet, the most devastating impact went beyond the balance sheet. At Hyundai's Georgia plant, immigration raids led to the arrest of 475 Korean workers, key contributors to its electric vehicle projects. Overnight, plans to advance its flagship EV line were frozen, and the promise of 8,500 new American jobs evaporated. The fallout rippled further. Families across Georgia lost income, communities reliant on the plant fell into crisis, and the effects even reached Seoul. South Korea's president was compelled to intervene, transforming what began as a labor dispute into a full-blown diplomatic crisis. Hyundai's case revealed a harsh truth. Misguided policy can dismantle entire industries, destabilize societies, and even shake long-standing alliances between nations. Mazda, long considered a niche automaker relying on the loyalty of its core customers, also fell victim to the 2025 trade storm. That very loyalty, once thought to shield it, became a fatal weakness. The brand was believed too small to bear the full brunt of tariffs, but reality proved otherwise. No company was immune to the spiral. The first losses hit south of the border. Mazda's exports from Mexico to the US, the lifeblood of its supply chain, plunged by 54% in just 4 months. Plants built to serve American customers were forced to halt operations as production ground to a halt behind tariff walls. The fallout quickly spread to Canada, where production was suspended entirely. Resources were shifted back to the US in a desperate bid to sustain sales, but every effort failed as costs ballooned and consumer purchasing power weakened. Just as Mazda was struggling to find a way forward, a new challenge emerged from Asia. The global market became flooded with cheap electric vehicles from China, further eroding Mazda's already thin profit margins. Without swift adaptation, Mazda's future looked increasingly uncertain. Mazda now risks fading into obscurity, or worse, being pushed to the sidelines entirely. Their story highlights a crucial lesson. In a trade war, neither scale nor brand prestige guarantees survival. Even the most modest automakers can be pulled into a downward spiral with no clear way out. For months, debates about tariffs have mostly focused on corporate profits and the shifting landscape of global supply chains. But the heaviest burden has fallen squarely on American families. By 2025, stepping into a car dealership felt like entering a whole new world of inflated prices. Vehicles that once represented years of savings suddenly cost $5,000 to $10,000 more than just a year earlier. Even US-assembled models, once thought to be immune from trade conflicts, saw price hikes averaging $3,000, that the shock extended far beyond sticker prices. Financing a vehicle became daunting as lenders tightened loan conditions to match soaring costs. Monthly payments that once fit comfortably within middle-class budgets now threatened to push households into financial crisis. For many, the dream of owning a new car all but vanished, forcing buyers toward the used market or to cling to aging vehicles longer than planned. This sparked a domino effect. The used car market overheated, with sedans over 10 years old selling for thousands above book value, and practical SUVs disappearing from lots within days. For the first time in decades, used cars became a luxury item, leaving middle and low-income families with virtually no options. Meanwhile, industrial towns supplying parts and raw materials to the auto sector also faltered. As factories shut down and workers lost jobs, entire communities, from restaurants and shops to schools, fell into decline. Slogans like "Buy American" offered little comfort. Instead of protecting workers and consumers, protectionism forced them to pay more for less. The automobile, once a symbol of independence and the middle-class American dream, had become a luxury for the few. The cost of this transformation was immense, and no one seemed willing to shoulder it. Meanwhile, the void left by Japanese and Korean automakers in the US was swiftly filled by Canada. Ottawa emerged as the new hub for investment, technology, and contracts that once belonged to Detroit. Plants promising jobs for American workers were now rising north of the border, signaling a seismic shift in the industry's future. For Detroit, the consequences were devastating. Once hailed as the world's automotive capital, the city was left with empty lots and decaying factories. A stark reminder that leadership is never guaranteed and reputations can vanish alongside the flow of capital. The world is watching. A car market once considered safe and lucrative has become unstable and unpredictable. This raises a serious question. If America's auto industry can collapse under its own weight, which sector will be next? This moment is about more than cars. It marks a turning point for America's standing in the global economy. As foreign corporations cease to view the US as a safe haven, ripple effects could spread into technology, energy, and agriculture, sectors deeply dependent on international trust and capital. Is this the first domino in a much larger collapse? If you found this analysis thought-provoking, don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth insights. Thank you.